Hello, and welcome to Yukonomist. I'm Keith Halliday, your host. Our show is a chat show about business and economics in the Yukon, and we verge sometimes into politics, public policy, and even snowmobile repair. And today on the show we've got three segments, one on business economics, one on public policy, and then we'll wrap up, of course, with Living the Dream, which is our segment about people who've found a wonderful path of their own here in the Yukon. And my guest for the business and economics section is Chris May, the driving force behind Mid-Arctic technology, as well as the newly launched Interpreter tablets. So Chris, thanks very much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, I'm fascinated by the whole process of designing new technologies and inventing things, not having done it myself, of course. So just take us through, how you came up with the idea for the Interpreter tablet, what it is, and how you brought it from idea to actually something I've held in my hands and been amazed by at the museum.
Sure. Well, Interpreter is an interactive product for museums. It operates off tablets, and the idea originally, McBride Museum had asked us about interactive audio, and they said, is there any way to make interactive audio location-based? And we got talking about that, and it seemed like maybe there was just a scale issue. It looked like a pretty big undertaking, and we got talking about a few things. And that was a Friday afternoon, and Monday morning I had a very long list for the director there. And I said, what if we did this for everybody? And it was just one of those sparks. And that was a rough idea. Then then you have to figure out, well, does anybody need it? Does anybody really need it?
Yeah. Will anybody pay for it?
Well, yeah. Can we finance it? What is the distinction? There are interactive products on the market, and we have a pretty significant distinction, but we had to find and solidify that distinction. You have to bring something to the market. You can't just build another car that has the exact same specs as the Toyota Camry, for example, at exactly the same price. So we looked at why were museums only 6-7% of museums why only 6 or 7% have interactive solutions? Yet when we looked at there was a conference called Museums and Mobile in March in the States, which we virtually attended. Why were they 33% of them looking for solutions immediately, and 33% in the longer term looking for solutions, but only 6 or 7% in Canada had solutions, and worldwide only 1 or 2% had solutions. So we had to figure out why, and I certainly realized why fairly quickly. Using some of the products, there was some difficulties, and so we not only wanted to eliminate the difficulties, but have a huge distinction and a huge advantage in that area.
Yeah, now I've visited museums outside where over the years they've had various kinds of audio guide technologies and things where you pressed buttons and were supposed to see images, and a lot of the time they didn't work. Yeah. And when I used the tablet at the museum, I take it, I hold it by the near field communication device, and then right on the screen it seems to work well. Yeah. Even I can use it, even I can understand it. And so it seems like you've cracked those usability problems.
Well, one of the keys to that was there's two things about the experiences you've been around even possibly more than I have with mobile and museums. The first thing is that people do have to download it on their own phone, and that's a process that some people aren't comfortable with. There's a lot of things involved in that, a lot of roaming charges, things like that. The second thing is you have a limited usability because of your screen size and the capabilities of that phone. So that was one of the things we're looking at is having people really utilize the product. Whereas we found out that some of the national museums in Canada and the US had a 1% adoption rate on those downloadable products. So how do you get that to 25, 30, 40, basically everybody who's interested, make it easy for them? So there were two things to that. One is, here's a tablet, you don't have to do anything, you don't have to set up, you don't have to navigate any complex menus. And the second thing is it reacts, the key to it is location, it's got several types of location awareness. It reacts to where you are, anywhere in the museum. It reacts to what you're interested in. You tell it what you're interested in. It does that two ways. One, like you said, with a token on the NFC that says, here you are, here's the item that you're interested in, or the group of items you're interested in. The second thing that you haven't seen at McBride yet, but we're testing extensively, is we've developed, we ended up developing, I don't know sort of how informally I'll go into this, a number of pieces of IP that are actually useful in multiple fields to integrate into the product. One of them is a small box about the size of your cell phone, a little thicker, that allows the tablet to respond to your approach. And that box, the unique part of that is it's the lowest powered public broadcast frequency device in the world. So it will last, if you put 4 Energizer AA lithium batteries in it, it'll last a year with 3,000 tablets passing in a day. So the whole, sorry.
Oh, so I was going to say, so that's the thing, say that this was a museum, we'd put one of those things here,
Yeah.
and when people approach with their tablets, the tablets would sense them, and it would say, we're in room number 5, this is what I should show to the visitors.
And it should start and respond to that. And then further than that, they can go drill down to the individual item. But we can have that 1 meter, 2 meters, 3 meters, 4 meters, 5 meter response just when you come through the doorway. But the whole point of all that was, you know, because we started with a local museum, you know, a local not-for-profit museum here that, you know, doesn't have some of the opportunities the nationals have, is everything we did was driven by accessibility and reachability. It's like, what if this was our model, how could we make this product so that they could afford it and that their users would use it? And the way we did that, again, was, well, we started, first of all, you know, the product itself had to reach a certain point. So we started with the visitors, talked to visitors at different museums, talked to visitors online, talked to, you know, all our business partners, staff, and so on like that, and from the, you know, whole history of our businesses, and about what their experiences were in museums and what they would like. And we talked to visitors at McBride about what they would like. And, you know, we showed them, you know, different things sort of conversationally and conceptually. And that's the reason that some of these technologies came out into play, like this low-powered technology, is because a museum there, like says, a temporary exhibit, they can't spend $700 every time to put a PowerPoint in, and they can't run extension cords everywhere because of fire code in a public space. You can't sort of wing it, you know, and they can't do that. And so we were looking at these ultra low powered boxes. My education, not my background, is as an electronic engineer. So I said, well, this should be possible, and we have a partnership with a company in California that specializes in ultra low power technology. Actually, those folks have been to the Yukon here recently, and they're coming again in November for TEDx. And we have a partnership with them, and I said, here's how I would do it to match the lowest power thing on the market, and that individual just took that away. So that was very interesting. I'm a bit of a geek, so I'll talk about the electronics a little bit. But, you know, it's 1/1800th of anything else on the public broadcast frequency. They broadcast 50 meters.
Yeah.
So,
and that's very impressive.
Yeah.
But then the other thing about startup businesses, of course, you go to Silicon Valley and you're thinking of the garage inventor coming up with the gadget, but there's a whole ecosystem there of lawyers and bankers and marketing people to help you get your company started. Yeah. And here, one thing that I found interesting with Interpretor was there's a lot of Whitehorse talent outside the technology field that helped you get the company going.
That's correct. Yeah, we had local, as far as we did everything locally that was possible. That's part of both our companies. That's part of the core of the business. And we found out that by forcing ourselves down that path, that things that other people think aren't available here and expertise that aren't available here are definitely available here. You just simply have to go, I'm looking for this, and you start talking to your network. And you discover that we actually have superior talent here than can be found if you're in Toronto, you can't locate and find those people. Here, if they're in town, you just ask a few questions and you'll find out fairly quickly. I've been here for 7 years now, and that, you know, that's definitely part of my core beliefs. But we found some spectacular talent, above that level that we would have expected if we were operating in other markets.
Yeah, well, that's great.
But again, it was just a matter of locating it and deciding that was our policy. And there was only really one specialized, well, aside from the manufacturing, of that very specialized technology, which isn't really a matter of Whitehorse or not Whitehorse, but there's only one person in the world that can build it, so one company in the world that can build it at this point.
Right.
So
let me interrupt you there, just in the interest of time. Let's wrap up with, this is a business show, a game of buy, sell, and hold. Yeah. So I'm going to give you 3 concepts, and then you tell me if they were stocks in the stock market, whether you would buy them, sell them, or if you're neutral, hold them. Sure. So number 1, buy, sell, or hold BlackBerry.
Now?
Now.
If I would hold, yeah.
Now number 2.
Because of acquisition.
Because they might be potentially
They will
bought.
be acquired.
So their stock price has gone down so far that it might be too far, might bounce back if an acquisition. Okay.
Yeah.
Number
There's
2.
always the Nortel lesson, though.
Where it didn't bounce back. Yeah. That's what they call the dead cat bounce, right?
Yeah.
Where it goes down and then back up and so on. Number 2, buy, sell, or hold the iPhone 5S, which does not have near-field technology in it.
I don't think Apple stocks declined anytime, so I would say hold.
And then finally, old-fashioned museums with no audio-visual assistance when you visit. Buy, sell, or hold.
That's a loaded question, I would have to say. I'd say that every museum needs to have the right solution at the right time. We've visited museums and learned why it's not always the right time or the right place for them to do this right now. And eventually they will all become technological. So you could hold them and wait for the timing to be right with the staff, the finances, assistants that are needed in some areas, and with the right plan to do it, to execute it. So.
All right, Chris, thanks very much for coming in today. That was fantastic. Yeah. Thanks very much. Our next guest on Yukonomist is Foghorn, who's here for the public policy part of the show. And Foghorn is one of Whitehorse's many urban guerrilla chicken farmers. And as the viewer may have noticed, Foghorn is wearing a disguise due to his non-compliance with local chicken regulations. Thanks for coming, Foghorn.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us, why did you get into chicken farming in your home, in your backyard in Whitehorse? Why stop just buying them at the store? Why produce them yourself, or rather have your chickens produce them in the backyard?
Well, I guess there were several reasons, but the main one was to know where our food was coming from when we do eat these eggs. We don't necessarily know what kind of feed is given to the animals or what kind of treatment is given to the animals, and so for us, we wanted to get a bit closer to the food. So we decided to raise our chicks. Or buy some chicks from a farm somewhere in Alberta and then raise them in our backyard, and they started laying for a family.
Yeah, I mean, being a father myself, I see how much the kids eat of some of the staples, how many eggs, how many liters of milk, how much bread, how much apple juice, and you really wonder where these things come from. And it's one thing for some foods that you eat occasionally, but for these staples, if they have any chemicals or things you don't want in them, there's quite a large quantity that your kids eat.
Yeah.
And so are you a believer in the 100-mile diet more broadly, in terms of other things you eat besides eggs?
I'd like to think so, but at the same time, I know it's quite difficult to do that, especially up here in the Yukon. We grow quite a bit of food in our yard, but I know that, there's certain things that you just can't do. You'd have such a lack of variety or a difficult time finding a large variety in your diet that you probably would just, have to buy something at the store at some point.
Yeah, so tell us about the egg business. I mean, how did you feed them? Was it just with compost, or did you have to buy food? And then how many eggs a week were you getting for your kids?
We did have to buy food, so technically speaking, it wouldn't be a 100-mile diet. You still had to buy feed for the chickens, and that has to get trucked up the highway anyways. But during the summertime and also the fall and the early spring, they do eat quite a bit of food in the yard, just by scratching around and eating grass and whatnot.
Yeah, and did the eggs actually taste better?
I thought they did. I mean, the yolks are definitely quite orange and quite more vibrant than the stuff you get at the store, especially if you just buy stuff off the shelf. Yeah.
And then let's talk from a public policy point of view. I mean, back in the day, people would have had all kinds of animals and plants and activities in their houses. In fact, my house here in Riverdale, apparently, the neighbor house had horses in the 60s. And then we got, to the phase where this was much clamped down by bylaws, and in some parts of Canada, even having your laundry drying outside is against the bylaws. So what's your take on the degree of regulation around our houses? Are we in the right place in terms of the balance between, protecting people from being bothered by their neighbors versus, being able to do on our land what we need to do with our families?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough balance to reach. I think, for me personally, I think food food, energy, and shelter are sort of the three main things that people need to survive and to live. And I think bylaws that restrict that are definitely making it a lot harder for people to survive. So for food, especially, I think the bylaws are definitely harder than what they should be. I don't think there should be such harsh bylaws up here to stop people from actually growing their own food.
Yeah, and then tell us a little bit about how your neighbors reacted. They obviously noticed the chickens. Did you have roosters? Did the neighbors complain? Was there a lot of smell? How did it work out for you and your neighborhood?
Well, before we got the chickens, we asked all of our neighbors, and all of them were quite happy with us getting them. They were quite supportive, so we covered those bases at first. And then when we did get the chickens, we didn't really know. Well, we bought baby chicks, and when we got the chicks, we didn't really know what we were getting. So we ended up having, I think it was 5 roosters, or maybe 6 roosters out of 12. But by the time they turned into, or became mature roosters, before they made too much noise, we sent them to the farm.
What does sent to the farm mean? Is that a euphemism?
It's a euphemism to say they got sent to the farm to return to our freezer.
They made the full cycle of life from backyard to freezer.
Yeah.
Now, it must be fun with the kids, introducing them to live animals, having them help take care of them. What's sort of the funniest thing that happened to you during the whole chicken episode so far?
The funniest thing, the strangest thing is that our youngest daughter was definitely quite afraid of the chickens when she first sort of met them. But I don't really know if there's anything funny that happened with the animals. Kids love them once they sort of got to know them a bit better, and I don't know, it's kind of a nice connection to see an animal that's not necessarily just a pet, but also something that produces food for us.
Yeah, and so some other people I know who had chickens asked my kids to take care of their chickens while they went away, and sort of the chicken farming version of mowing the lawn while you're on vacation. And there was a chicken escape. But my kids managed to round them up and get them all back in the pen.
Oh, that's good to know.
It was a good experience.
I'm hoping it never happened to us.
So let's talk about the new bylaw on Whitehorse, because now there's at least one person who has an officially compliant chicken coop. What do you have to do to have an officially compliant chicken coop? Do you know the details?
I actually have absolutely no idea what the details are for that. We had our chickens before the bylaw, prior to the bylaw being put in place, and when the bylaw got passed, we sort of decided that we had already discussed with all our neighbors about the chickens, and so we had no reason to have any complaints about our chickens. So we just sort of decided not to go with the bylaw.
And you declared yourselves officially grandfathered.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So the whole episode made me wonder, if the dog was invented today and someone tried to bring them, I wonder what kind of bylaw they would come up, or if they would even be allowed.
Yeah, it's hard to know. I mean, it's. I think when we're asked to change our ways, it's quite hard for people in general, especially when you're living a certain lifestyle and you have someone saying, "I want to impose a change on you." I think it's quite hard for people to sort of bite that and say, yes, okay, I'll allow it to happen, especially if it's going to have a quote-unquote negative impact on you. So I don't know. It probably would have a negative impact on a lot of people, I guess.
Yeah, and then what have you done with your eggs? I guess we should start to wrap up and ask you about a couple recipes. How do you prepare the eggs, and how do you prepare the chickens when the roosters, go out to the farm, as you say, and end up in your freezer? What are some of the dishes that you prepared?
Well, for eggs, I mean, we typically would just like them scrambled or fried in the pan. That would be the best way to do it. Sometimes we would make some frittatas. In terms of roosters, the best way to cook a rooster, I guess, is to boil it a lot, because it's kind of tough and not as tender as regular chicken meat.
All right. Well, this is a business show, so let's wrap up with a round of buy, sell, and hold. So I'll tell you 3 concepts, and you tell me that if they were stocks on the stock market, whether you'd buy them, sell them, or if you're feeling more neutral about them, if you'd hold them.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. The first one is something I remember well from school lunches of my own: buy, sell, or hold the hard-boiled egg.
I would say probably sell.
Why is that?
Oh, I don't know. It's definitely not something that I'm a fan of. So I like eggs, but not hard-boiled eggs. So.
Well, it makes me think I'm going to be able to guess your answer to this next one, which is a question that actually came up when I was with the family last on the Chilkoot Trail. buy, sell, or hold powdered eggs.
Ooh, that's definitely, yeah, get rid of that.
Okay, the final one, buy, sell, or hold the rival of the backyard chicken, which is the backyard goat.
I'd buy that one. You need to mow your lawn somehow.
Excellent. Well, Foghorn, thank you for coming on the show today. It's been a pleasure to have you, and I look forward to having a few chicken dinners at your house at some point in the future.
Thanks for having us.
All right, next on Yukonomist is the Living the Dream segment. And today with us we have Pascal Halliday, our chief high school correspondent, and Angus Clark, our grade 8 correspondent. Thanks for coming in today. School wrapped up. Thanks for joining us. So Pascal, let's start with you. How's high school going so far? You're a month in. How are you feeling for this year?
It's pretty good. I'm feeling good about it. I've got a lot of the older teachers, like ones I had last year, so it feels pretty good.
And me as an old person, I don't really know what's going on in the minds, what's on the minds of high school students these days. So what are the big issues that everyone's talking about?
Well, volleyball season just started, so we've had tryouts for the past 2 weeks, and basically everyone's just talking about who's going to make the team, who's going to go to the tournaments in Dawson.
So since you're my daughter, and I happen to have observed that you've been watching a lot of 80s high school movies, Pretty in Pink, Breakfast Club, all the classics, tell me, what is the same or different at F.H. Collins compared to those classic movies?
I could see some Napoleon Dynamite stuff going on at F.H. Collins. I think that's definitely what is most similar.
Now, for the viewer, and assuming the viewers come back from the kitchen and is actually watching the show, tell us what Napoleon Dynamite is.
It's a movie about a guy, a kind of awkward guy, who wants to ask this girl to prom. But he's not very adept at social situations, so he's kind of making a mess of it.
Now, are you saying that high school students are not always adept at social situations? If so, things may not have changed that much since I was at FH.
Some of them aren't, but...
Angus, let's switch to you. Now, you've just made the big jump from elementary school to high school. That's sort of like in Star Wars where they jump into hyperspace, you know. So what's it been like? New high school student. If you were in America, they'd call you a freshman. How's the transition been?
I think it hasn't been as hard as I thought it would be. I thought maybe it would be kind of tough, a lot of homework, tough teachers, but I thought it was quite a short leap. It was like nothing for me.
Yeah, and which do you like better, high school or elementary school?
I gotta say I like high school more, how you can come home at lunch, you just you roam, you can walk to classes.
Yeah, I've never heard that high school was a place where there was a lot of roaming, but that's part of your experience. Tell us more about the roaming.
I kind of started in France, like you roam to classes, you just can walk, we walk through like an open place, and it's the same in FH, you can just walk wherever you want to get to class. You can take like a little walk and then come back to class.
So when your old buddies from your split grade 6-7 class last year at Whitehorse Elementary ask you what FH is like, what do you tell them?
I tell them probably about the same thing. Maybe more actually about like friends and stuff, but about the same.
So of course high school is where, you know, the fun's over, it's not finger painting time anymore, you have to learn stuff. So tell us, what's one thing you've learned at FH Collins so far this year?
I've learned that my volleyball team is quite bad, and then they need a bit of practice.
Well, don't say that because there may be competitors from Vanier or Porter Creek High watching, or are you just lulling them into a false sense of security?
Maybe.
So one of the big deals at FH is driving by the school. The government just put up the fancy new sign with the picture of the new school. So Pascal, what are people saying about the new school project?
There's been a lot of jokes about that, especially from the class that's graduating this year that was told that they were going to be graduating from a new school.
Yeah, I before the show I actually Googled new FH Collins and the government press release came up that said it was supposed to be open already.
Yeah, some people are using it to denote a long time, like, oh, we'll hang out when the new FH Collins is built, which I guess means never.
Oh dear. It's always bad when things are reduced to ridicule. But Angus, you're going to be one of the guys, assuming they do actually build it now, that might actually graduate from it. What do you think of the new design? Have you seen it on the big sign?
Yeah, I think it's a bit far-fetched.
Yeah, what do you mean by far-fetched?
I think it looks very, sci-fi almost. I don't think the school is going to look that cool. Maybe they can pull it off, but I don't think so.
And you think the architects are doing that on purpose to the government, or is the government doing it to us, or is it just a mistake, or why does it look so sci-fi and it might just look like a boring old school?
Maybe a good painter? I don't know.
And the thing that struck me, going back to my days in high school, is that sign would have been vandalized immediately, but it's untouched. What's going on with the students of today? Why has no one touched that sign?
Maybe the school has posted a permanent guard outside it.
Yeah. I think they are now using those advanced paints where you can clean the graffiti off easily. Let's talk a little bit about the upcoming sports season. You both mentioned volleyball so far. How do you think the Warriors are shaping up? You mentioned your team already, but Pascal, how about the rest of the teams? How are they shaping up for the big battles against Vanier and Porter Creek to come?
Well, I'm on the junior team, so it's grade 9s and 10s, and we've got some good players. Like people who played last year, and a few girls who went to the Canada Summer Games this summer for volleyball. So I think we've got a pretty good chance.
Yeah, that's excellent. And what about you, Angus? Do you think the team will be able to pull it together and be contenders in the inter-city championships?
I think my team, not so much, but I think my brother's team, the 11-12 boys, I think they have a really good chance. They have a lot of strong players who've played, and my brother went to the Canada Summer Games, so I think they have some experienced players who can take them to the promised land.
Take them to the promised land. Excellent. Well, we'll be there to watch. Would you encourage people, the viewer, assuming they're watching the show, to come out and see your games?
It's always nice to have people there. I'm not sure how exciting it would be.
Well, I mean, compared to the 80s high school movies that you've been watching, Pascal, I mean, if you watch in America the high school basketball or the high school volleyball games, often the gyms are packed. And here in the Yukon, anyway, the crowds are a bit, I would say, smaller.
Well, the games are on weird nights, like Wednesday night at 6:30. And no one really wants to go anywhere on Wednesday night at 6:30.
It's not really a go out, put on your best clothes and go out to the high school volleyball kind of town, is it?
No.
No. All right, well, let's wrap up with a round of buy, sell, and hold. This is an economics show after all. So I'm going to tell you three words. I'm going to start with you, Pascal, and then go to you, Angus. And you say if they were a stock on the stock market and you were an investor, whether you would buy them, you like them, whether you would sell them, you think they're a bad idea, or if you're neutral on them, you can say hold. So say buy, sell, or hold, and then give me a sentence on why. So Pascal, let's start with you. 1980s high school movies.
Buy. There are some pretty funny bits.
Such as?
Breakfast Club is hilarious. Judd Nelson is just very funny.
Do you think that your high school will your era of high school will generate its own movies?
Well, we've had some movies like the High School Musical series, but they're not the same exactly. Like high school movies, they've already been done in a way.
Yeah.
People are moving on to other genres.
Angus, buy, sell, or hold F.H. Collins cafeteria lunches.
Hold. I've never had one.
Oh, you never had one? Okay.
No.
Pascal, have you had a cafeteria lunch?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, buy, sell, or hold the cafeteria lunches.
Oh, definitely buy. There are some good lunches. They sort of revolve around 3 recipes, but they're pretty good.
Okay, Angus, let's wrap up with you then. Buy, sell, or hold the new F.H. Collins design.
Sell. Absolutely. I think they should just give up with it. There's no point. I don't really have much of an opinion. I can go in whatever. I could go in a portable if I had to.
And the learning would still happen.
It would still happen. It's all about the teachers.
Angus and Pascal, thank you very much for coming into the show today. And thank you very much for watching. That wraps up our latest edition of Yukonomist, the Yukon show about business and politics.